Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the fifth webinar of our Inspiring series. In this session, we will discuss Mecodify, an online tool to analyze and visualize big data easily, especially on social media. My name is Mohammed Shiblaq. I am the Media and Communications Officer at Oxfam in the Regional Gender Justice Program based in Beirut, Lebanon. I will be the moderator for today's webinar. We started the Inspiring series of webinars with an aim of creating an interactive space that brings together conceptual thinking and practical examples of advancing gender justice and women's rights, especially in the MENA region. With this series, we strive to inspire, foster collaboration and joint advocacy, acquire new knowledge, and share good practices and lessons learned on gender justice and campaigning. The purpose of this series of webinars is to bring together practitioners, scholars, as well as experts in the fields of gender, influencing, and advocacy. As this is our fifth webinar, our aim is to learn, develop, and adapt accordingly. So there will be a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. Feel free to type your questions in English or in Arabic, and our speaker will be answering them accordingly. At the end of the webinar, we will share a small survey form to receive your feedback on this webinar and to enhance our learning. Before I give space to Dr. Walid, our speaker for today, I will be introducing him now. Dr. Walid is a Yemeni researcher and technologist based in Sweden with a specialization in big data, internet policy, and new media. He is known for his interdisciplinary academic background since he holds computer engineering and journalism academic degrees. Walid had created Al-Qasir as a tool to map and circumvent website censorship in 2009. More recently, he created Mecodify in 2016 in his capacity as a postdoctoral researcher at Stockholm University. Walid is also a member of the Board of Trustees of the Internet Society. I will now give the floor to Dr. Walid to introduce us to Mecodify, the online tool to measure and analyze influence and impact on social media.
Thank you, Mohammed. It's really an honor and a privilege to be with you today. As Mohammed has eloquently mentioned, the tool I created was part of a postdoc research that I've done in relation to social media. I believe that the screen is now shared with you. I hope it's clear and everything is going smoothly. The idea behind the project, just to start with, started about when we realized that a lot of social media analysts, including researchers, were unable to use Twitter data a lot. All they do is see their, let's say, recent tweets, engage in tweets, share, etc. But maybe they have not yet developed a proper understanding of how to analyze the big data, the amount of volume that exists on Twitter. And so we decided as Stockholm University on behalf or in our part of the bigger project called Media and Conflict and Democratization. It's basically a European project that allows us to look into the effects of media. This is the website. It's called Mecodem. The idea was to look into how media affects conflict around the world and as well as democratization. And part of media, as you know today, is basically social media. And social media has a number of challenges and opportunities. Among the challenges is difficulty in analyzing the data on it because it's enormously huge and it requires some sort of technical skill. So we developed a tool called Mecodify. Partly I was the manager of the team to develop this. And what it does is basically breaks the bits and data of Twitter and produces visuals that make sense. Visuals that you can interact with, that you can explore, dig deeper into, and realize and understand what exactly is going on Twitter as regards the hashtags or username or whatever query you put in. And so that's in brief what Mecodify does. So I did a presentation earlier and I realized that people like to see the results right away. So I will not involve myself too much in the description of how the software, let's say, is set up or how you get into parameters, etc. But I've done a pre-filled case. Actually, two cases with the suggestion of Mohammed. Two cases about Oxfam, how Oxfam has been using Twitter. So if you're interested, let's begin. We have two cases. One of them is about, obviously there are several other cases that I did before, but these two are exclusively for Oxfam. So one of them is about Oxfam tweets during 2016. And I'm not sure how many of you are involved in Twitter, but I was really impressed when I looked at the data. Just not to spoil it for you, I'll just show you the graph. And so this tool allows you to look into what has happened when it comes to Oxfam related tweets. So if you visualize the graph, you look into two peaks during 2006. These peaks represent, the graph here represents the number of retweets that you had as Oxfam. And in fact, retweets here represent every retweet that had to use Oxfam, either as it was generated by Oxfam, or Oxfam was partly mentioned in that tweet. So if you have a tweet that has Oxfam in it and it got retweeted, it would be calculated. And if you have all Oxfam tweets, they actually can be calculated as well, included. So what you need to do here is when you look into this graph, this is the first graph of all the queries, you have a list, let's say this cloud or set of hashtags that you use, that Oxfam related tweets used. You can tell that lots of it has to do with Yemen's war, and there are issues concerning inequality. Even it came about as one of the strongest hashtags. Several other hashtags that you might actually know, some of you in the room might have actually dealt with or used. And so the size of the word represents the significance of that hashtag. Additionally, you actually can see the 81,492 tweets already on tables. You can actually sort these tables based on the number of retweets. For example, if you'd like to know the most retweeted tweet ever, and so you click on retweets and it lists the table now based on the retweet. So you can see here that the highest retweet that Oxfam got in 2016 was retweeted 36,000, over 36,000, almost 37,000 times, and it was about Haiti. We must provide, I don't know if I could improve the font here. This is the tweet that got the highest retweet. So if you click on link, you actually can go to the actual tweet. And you'll be able to see that this is actually a video. And you'll be able to actually see the likes as well, which is the favorites. So this is one example of how you can actually know how popular a tweet is. So you want to see the next one, and it goes way below. So we have one that is unique, and that accounts for the spike. If you look into the date here, that's October 7th. And if you look at the map, the graph, this is basically it. So this huge spike is when Oxfam did this tweet and generated that much reaction. Additionally, you can actually look into something that I call interaction. So it's good to see the retweets and favorites, etc. But you might also want to consider looking into the responses and reactions. So if you look to the reactions, you actually can understand what people were saying and how they were reacting. And so this is an illustration of the interactivity that Mecodify allows you to look into. So this is the original tweet. And then you can actually look into direct replies to that tweet. You can look into the replies that mention or the tweeter. And you can actually look into the mentions that had happened in the next 24 hours. So this is a list of all of the responses that you got. You can look further if you find that, for example, there's one tweet that you like to have, see if there are internal responses. You can click on this icon and it will show you if there's a response to a response. So it's a recursive process that allows you to look into the responses to a response, and then you can drill deeper and deeper until you find the whole network. So this is one example of where this tool is quite powerful and allows you to look into the responses, interaction that happened around a particular tweet. Additionally, let's say you're happy that this is the tweet, but you're not interested in retweets. You just want to see the number of tweets that are original, the frequency of tweets, original tweets. So Mecodify allows you to do that. So you need to go to the say graph metrics, and here you can actually click on count only original tweets. So instead of aggregating and counting retweets, it will only count tweets. So if you notice here, it was about 40,000, and if you visualize only original tweets, you see it goes low, and the retweeted tweets that you see in here, the spike disappears, meaning that this accounts for the frequency of tweets, original tweets. And the frequency of tweets didn't happen on that day, it happened on another day, and it was, let's see, on the 18th of January. And if you click here in the top of the spike, you can actually go to the actual tweets that happened that day. And here you see the tweets, and you can sort them based on how many got retweeted. And you'll end up seeing that this is the most retweeted tweet during that day, and it was about new Oxfam's report about the richest 62 people who had the same wealth as the poorest 3.6 billion. So additionally, you can also see the responses and interact with it. And this is the picture that had been used at that event. Note that there's something else that this tool can allows you to do. It allows you to plot two different graphs at the same time on stacking each other. So if this is the original retweets, you'd like to see the tweets that had retweets as well, I mean the graph of retweets. So you click on add retweets and then click on overlay here on the left side. And this allows you to plot the two together on the same panel. So if you click here, you'll notice that the black is with retweets and the blue is only tweets. So you can actually click here and then it will show the tweets, original tweets. If you click back again, it will show it with retweets. So you can tell this is a big difference. And that means that there's an enormous following. It's a number of retweets is quite high. Additionally, you'd like to actually understand the number of people who are retweeting. So if you consider in quantitative methods in research and analyzing, there are several numbers that you take account of. One of them is the number of activity in terms of how many times a particular, let's say, subject has been retweeted. The other thing is the original tweets, and the third is the number of people who tweet. So that's also a metric that people, researchers like to get hold of. And this is also possible by only counting the unique tweeters. And if you click that there and visualize again, it will actually plot the third one, which is unique retweeters. So if we look into this, this actually represents a very interesting dynamic. You see that people tweet more or less one time or 1.5 times, let's say, and on average per day. That is rather interesting because it means that you have a very diverse following. It's not just the same people tweeting all the time, but you have several tweeting and several people tweeting at the same time, which is a healthy metric. Had you seen this, let's say, for example, the blue line here exceeding way far above the green line, then that means that only a few people are tweeting a lot, and so that's still good, but it means that it's not diverse. You don't have a diverse set, but in this case, this set is rather diverse. And so that's one way of looking at how to use the tool. Additionally, you can look into the number of responses only, and that we can do by looking into the tweet type. Tweet types can be a number of things. They can be an image, a video, a link. It can be from a verified user, people who are celebrities and powerful, or entities, established entities. It can be a retweet, a response. It has a response, meaning is a response, it means that the particular tweet itself is a response to another tweet. Has a response is that the original tweet that has responses is only plotted. And so I know that time is limited, but that's what I'm using this opportunity to simply highlight the functionalities and allow you to explore on your own. Then you can actually look into the particular hashtags, etc. For example, if I'm interested in looking into the hashtags about Yemen, so if I click there, I'll see these, and this is the graph, and all the table, the 2,203 tweets here are only exclusively about Yemen. You can search, you can sort again by retweets, and you can then get the highest retweeted about the situation in Yemen. So you get this particular tweet about the UK government is fueling war in Yemen. And you can do the same for any hashtags, and you can actually plot multiple hashtags on the same graph. You see, you can compare how one hashtag is doing better or worse, and how they are compared to, are they related, are they interconnected, etc. Additionally, if you're interested in looking into what graphics or images have been the most, let's say, used or shared on Twitter, you can use something called shared here. If you look into this table, you'll be able to look into, there's something called media, top images, top videos, top tweets, etc. So if you click on the top shared, so this will actually display to you the ones that have been shared quite widely. And this shared is different than retweets, because it means that people actually copied the whole URL, which is the address of the image, and posted it again in a unique and new tweet. It's not like a retweet. Additionally, you can also look into the exact same metric, the same category, but in terms of number of retweets. And so you'll find that these are the ones that have been retweeted the most, and tweets that have images that have been retweeted the most. This one is about the drought, floods, and hunger, etc. And you can look down. And what's interesting is that you can also delve deep and click on any of these and look into the tweets that had that particular image as shared. And then you can see, okay, this one is the one that accounted for most of the retweets. And so this is one way of looking into how Mecodify can allow you to explore and dig deep into their social media impulse and understand where you did well, where you didn't, who is being. So this is about the content. And then there's also the period. If you're really interested in understanding, for example, when exactly did this spike happen? So you see here there's a spike. I mean, you want to analyze the internal dynamics from 17th to 19th. So you can do one of two things. You can either decide on the exact time, and then you can take the time series units, and you can move it from days to hours, for example. So now with hours, you can actually dig deeper and see how different hours. So these are the tweets per hour, and you can tell that the graph has changed drastically, because it means that these are not aggregated together in one day, but they're clustered together per hour. You can do the same for minutes, and I wouldn't recommend you to do it, but you can also do it for seconds. This seconds idea is useful for what I call Twitter forensics. If you're really interested in which tweet was before the other by seconds, you can actually plot that on the graph. I use that, for example, when when doing research about the terrorist attack that happened in Nairobi, in Kenya. I wanted to know which exact tweet happened before the other, and who was the person who did it. So I did an analysis and looked into how the number of tweets increased or changed over time. So this is what Mecodify also allows you to do. You can also do a number of things such as search based on language. You can search based on source. You'd like to see, for example, what are the, let's do it right now and as a test. You're interested in looking into what are the tweets that have been out there using mobile devices. So you click on mobile devices here, and you change this to day so that it becomes a smoother graph. And so if you look into this, this is all by mobile devices, but you're interested in comparing it to regular or web. So you click on overlay and go back to all, and you'll see here the comparison. You can tell that mobile devices are rather a significant chunk, almost more than half in some cases, or just about half. And when you look into the web applications, you'll see that most of them are web, Twitter for iPhone, iPad. These are all the devices that have been used for tweets. And some of them are apps like Jukebox, Facebook, etc. So you can actually analyze and see how tweets were published, how they were posted. And this information is available on Twitter. Now that if you have any questions, you can intervene, I guess, because it might be easier for you to do so. Feel free to do that. But if you're satisfied with how you can look into content and how it's analyzed, let's move to something else that Mecodify allows you to, and which is tweeters. So this is all one side. It's beautiful, it's nice, it's helpful, but it's not enough. You'd like to understand who are the people behind these tweets. I mean, how do I know, for example, who are the ones that are posting a lot about Oxfam, and whether any of them is someone that we already know, how to communicate, how to thank them perhaps. So this is the tab that does that for you. It's called the tweeters. So you see here the tweet, conveniently this is called the tweeters. And if you'd like to know, for example, right now for Oxfam, who are the ones that have tweeted the highest? Obviously it will be Oxfam, I would guess, but let's look at the chart. Yes, it's Oxfam GB and Oxfam. These two are the ones that tweeted the highest, obviously because they're in the query. And then there are a number of individuals, and let's say Anton, Combe, James, George, Winnie. So you can look at actually to the list of people, and this is Oxfam. Then you see here Anton Newcombe, then you'll find James, George, Winnie, etc. And these are the people who have been tweeting in relation to Oxfam in some way or the other, in terms of quantity, frequency. You can actually have as many as the top 200 actually. This is the top 10. Additionally, let's say you're interested in, okay, this guy is interesting. Let me see their tweets. So you can click on see the tweets, and it will actually display the tweets of that particular individual. And you'll be able to see what is it that that individual is tweeting about. And for example, here I would give it to Oxfam, etc. And he's based in Berlin, as it's said here. And you can actually look into the actual tweets that he has, and even look into the particular tweets of that particular individual. You see how deeply or flexible the software is. Additionally, you can look into how many people had in terms of replies, retweets by others. And this is in terms of quantity. Let's say you're, okay, that's good, you know the quantity. You want to know the influence. The people who have the highest followers are the people you'd like, or the entities or tweeters that you'd like to engage with and thank, for example. And so if you look into the top 10 highest in number of followers, and then plot the graph. All right, so let's see. Okay, you have Coldplay, which is rather interesting. Coldplay is a band that's quite popular with over 18 million followers. They tweeted about Oxfam. So did J.K. Rowling, and so did BBC News. And all of these have tweeted in some way or the other about Oxfam. And this is one way for any person who's using the account to appreciate the fact that they've done so, and keep that as one way of understanding how well their campaign has been doing, because any of those individuals can have an enormously strong, let's say, influence, positive or negative depending on the tweet, but usually positive if they're for something good. And additionally, you can look into the actual tweets that these, for example, I'm interested in knowing how Simon Pegg tweeted. What did he tweet about Oxfam? So I go to his tweets, then I actually see this in terms of number of retweets, and these are the hashtags he used, and these are the tweets he had. You can click on the link, and you can get to the actual tweet. So it says 5 years of lives being torn apart enough, 7 joining hands with Syria. So this is done with the Oxfam GB mentioned. So that's where it was picked up. And you can actually look into the interactions that happened between him and others concerning this particular tweet. So you can tell there's a connection between tweeters and tweets, and that's one way of knowing it. I'm sure that there are many ways to explore the data, so that's why Mecodify allows you to export data using a CSV format. So you can download this file and then use it with other software such as Tableaus, Excel, even SPSS, etc. And you can also sort based on the number of mentions. You can sort a number of retweets by others, highest number of quotes, etc. And you can actually look into the people's location. Let's say you're interested in people only in highest number of followers, but only based in, let's say, Washington. That would be Washington, D.C. or Washington State. And then you'll see, okay, these are the people that had used Oxfam, and they are based in Washington. And you can tell the World Bank is one of them, the International Monetary Fund, etc. You can also do, as I showed earlier, go to their tweets and see what they tweeted. And you can also look into the bio. Let's say you're interested in people in Washington or maybe in the USA who have an interest in their bio, something to do with media. Now you actually have the people in the USA that have something to do with media in their bio. And so this is an editor, this is media. You can do the same for media everywhere globally, and say media journalism or journalist. And this would actually give you, okay, it's the highest number. There are none in that, with that. Oh, you can actually have, let's say a comma, I think. All right, a comma should be used. So these are all media journalism or journalist-related profiles. And they are sorted based on the number of followers. You can tell AFP has been involved here with one tweet, Boston Globe with one, etc. There may be a few tweets, but these are quite influential given that theirs are highly followed media personalities or entities. And so this is so far so good. If you have any questions, as I said, let me know. So let's take you to something more interesting than even this. Let's say you are interested in understanding how people interact with Oxfam in terms of mentions and how they are related. So the beauty of the software is that it allows you to look into who's responding to who based on a particular hashtag or particular say topic or mention. So the network visualization, which is experimental since it's more advanced than the rest, allows you to do that. So responses here, let's say I would like to see the people who respond most actively to Oxfam or interact with Oxfam. So if you show network here, you'll begin to see graphs. These you can tell these two dots, two centers are Oxfam and Oxfam GB. You can tell that Oxfam GB responds, Oxfam responds less frequently, while Oxfam GB, it's safe. Because the blue line shows that they're responding, they're sending out, and the red means that they're receiving mentions or replies. So this is actually an interesting dynamic. Oxfam GB is much more active in responding and engaging with audience, while Oxfam is lagging behind in that sense. Then additionally, there are some bridges between the two, people who actually engage with both accounts. And to take it to the next level, Mecodify allows you to download the data that are readily available for importing into another platform called Kumho. If you're familiar with it, Kumho is a very popular relations system that allows you to map out and visualize relationships. So I've done my, I uploaded data for 2016 into Kumho to understand who are these people exactly and how do they interact and who is the strongest in the networks within Oxfam. And I came up with this interesting view. Let me show you the Oxfam tweets. Okay, so this is what you come up with. It's this sort of like it looks like some sort of prawn. it's it's because it has a head and has a tail. But if you click here, you'll be able to actually see what are we talking about. So this is basically Oxfam's account, and this is Oxfam GB's account. You can tell they have vast networks. They are very well connected to others. But if you're interested in knowing, now so far it's similar to the image I've shown you, but you're interested in knowing who these people are. So I've done one with images, and this actually allows you to look into the names of the individuals who are interacting. And if you look here, if I put this in full screen mode, hopefully it will screen. And if you look into this full screen mode, you can actually see the green quite frequent. Green meaning that logos that have to do with Oxfam. And I like the fact that Oxfam's Twitter accounts always have the same logo. It would be very handy for graphs like these because you can tell where Oxfam is related. So if you highlight this, for example, you see the inner circle of Oxfam. You can tell Oxfam accounts are interacting quite actively with Oxfam itself. Highlighting on one only will show you how they are connected. You can do the same with any account. And you can also do a search. Let's say if I would like to see if CNN is here somewhere. Okay, there is CNN Next. And then it will be possible to, okay, there it is. I found it. You can do the same thing and search for any other account and look into how they're interacting. So you can tell this is rather a big map, but you can use Kumho to single out a particular, say, link. Let's say I'm interested in seeing a tweet that was from Oxfam to, let's say, Reporters Sans Frontiers. Oh no, yeah. So they have one tweet here that mentions Oxfam. Let me see if I click on this particular link, it will actually reveal the tweet itself. And if I go down here, you can actually see the link. This is the link of the tweet that had been corresponded in relation to from Anton to Oxfam, including the MSF UK link. So this is one way of examining visually how tweets are retweeted or mentioning others. And you can do the same thing for any account. Additionally, you'd like to understand, for example, let's say, different networks within the two networks, within Oxfam and Oxfam GB. So you see on the blue is Oxfam GB, and the purple is Oxfam. You can tell the difference is rather, let's say, significant, which makes sense. This is all a matter of responses and mentions. And this is where you find that where there might be bridges, these are the people whom you're interested in. That's so good so far in terms of visuals, but what about data? We need data, and this is what researchers are interested in. So data is possible to attain using analysis called social network analysis. And there are several metrics those of you involved in social network analysis can use. Among them is degree, centrality, closeness, betweenness, etc. So you can actually understand who are the people within your network that have, let's say, the highest betweenness, obviously Oxfam. And then you have DevX. This is one very important account to look into. The rest are less popular, less important, informative. And there are the eigenvector leaders, and this is a variable that calculates the power of the individual. So if you look into who these individuals are, you can tell that Winnie Yima is the most powerful in terms of eigenvector, meaning that they are she is connected to the strongest, the well-connected nodes above Oxfam. And then you have Oxfam, and then you have the World Bank. and World Economic Forum. Then you have a second here. You can look it up. How change happens. That's the logo. And you can look into the bio and go to the actual tweet, etc. And look into the account. So all of this is possible to do in combination. So it's Oxfam's strategic advisor links. This is an account by Duncan Green. So these are examples of what the power of Mecodify allows you to do. It allows you to scrutinize, understand, analyze, visualize, map, even produce this as a report to understand the real pulse of the media. And so I actually did another case for the Even Up account, but I'm not sure if we have, I didn't expect it to take this long. But this is the other account for Even It Up and Say Enough campaigns. I've done that as experimentally, and I can tell, okay, this was also quite successful with over 20,000 retweets over the period from 2014 to 2017. And the most active of them is Even It Up, much better than Say Enough. If you plot the two together, for example, I'm interested in seeing Even It Up in comparison to, let's say, overlay it in comparison to Say Enough. And this way, actually, I can see the two plotted on each other, and you can tell, yeah, the Say Enough is rather recent, and it's still much smaller than the Even It Up hashtag. And then you can do the exact same thing as I described earlier to analyze and see who is popular and what and so forth. So one friend of mine said that when they used Mecodify, it made him addicted to scrutinizing Twitter. It will actually allow you to look into things you've not noticed before, get you to understand the pulse in the real sense, and hopefully use that to improve your campaigns and outreach. So that's from me. Give the floor back to you and to questions.
Thank you a lot, Dr. Walid, for this great presentation. Mecodify is a brilliant tool with impressive features, actually, which I'm sure digital media strategists as well as campaigners will enjoy using to enhance their planning, evaluation, and monitoring and learning of their campaigns. For me personally, I'll be using it to understand who are the influentials, who are the influential people on Twitter, in order to build alliances with and networks which would, of course, reflect on our influencing work at Oxfam. I will be opening the door now for questions from the participants. If anyone have a question, please type it in the chat box. And Dr. Walid, can you tell us if Mecodify can be extended to other platforms other than Twitter?
Yeah, Mohammed, it's the plan in the future. I mean, we consider the way that Mecodify works as scalable and adaptable to any form of data, big data. So we can have the same thing for Facebook, YouTube. It will be very similar in that you have the actors instead of tweeters, as well as the actual content. So it's expandable. It's just that we are looking into ways to continue funding it, because we have proposals. We're setting up proposals to extend funding for it, because funding had ended this year, and so we are looking into plans. So if you have any ideas, any partners, any thoughts, we are welcome to share them.
Of course, hopefully, with the more presentations and introductions we give and you provide about it, you get more exposure to it. It's really a brilliant and great tool. I'm sure people will be supporting it. My other question, if there is time constraints which for the tweets to be extracted from.
Actually, it was one of the fundamental questions because Twitter's API does not allow you to have more than 1 week back in the past in terms of getting the data. So we ended up using a method called web scraping to extract data from web results, web search results. And this is, it takes longer, but it's still the only possible way. And I've approached Twitter more than once asking them to allow this to be open for the research and not for profit community. And they were nodding, but not yet accessible for us to access all the data, pull the data. So this is a way around it until those companies give the research and not for profit community more access.
Okay, thank you. We have a question from the audience, and how can we link this to evaluate social norms and stereotypes? And is there a gender perspective? Can we differentiate between male and female influencers? So maybe this would be kind of like analysis to the content of tweets and trying to understand what are the trends and a type of analysis to the content of the tweets, and in a way to understand the general attitudes in online. So how do you think we can use Mecodify to understand that?
I mean, Mecodify is a tool, so the way you use it is what matters. If you have devised the proper methodological way of assessing the gender based on content, that could be fed into the system. It could be fed using keywords, queries, etc. But you can also see the images and utilize additional sophisticated tools for facial recognition. I mean, I wouldn't recommend that at this stage because it might be more pervasive. But there are some additional third-party tools. The way that Mecodify works is that everything is open source and you can actually download the data and use it on your own on your server. But you can also download these CSV files. And these are the spreadsheet files. So the whole data is in front of you. Then you can then utilize whatever artificial intelligence, other means. Because the way Twitter profiles work is that they do not have, as I recall, a field for gender, and they do not even have a field for age. So these are things that users deliberately may not want to reveal. So it's becoming like more of an ethical question. That being said, if you have hashtags that are for campaigns that address particular grievances, inequalities, gender issues, then these are the ones that you need to look into because they are deliberately on Twitter for promotion. So you can look into people who will support one direction and compare that, contrast that with people who support another direction. I did that, for example, in analyzing the election campaigns that happened in Egypt. So I was able to look into the main clusters of supporters of the different groups. So in this way, the data actually is less ambiguous. It's very clearly fine-tuned to allow you to look into who is supporting what. And then that is where validity of data becomes very crucial.
Thank you, Dr. Walid. I will move now to question from Florian from Oxfam's EU office in Brussels. It would be really interesting for us to use Mecodify, but we don't really have the technical capacity to install this on our own. So I was wondering if there is any chance to have it installed version which we could simply log into, adding searches that are relevant to us. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. This is a question that repeatedly comes back again. And the answer to that is basically a constraint in terms of resources and finances. I mean, we've developed the tool so that it is open source. But beyond that, what is necessary is that it has to be somewhere, hosted somewhere, and someone needs to pay the bill, foot the bill, as they say. And so far, the Mecodem project is supporting this service, but it's not supporting it for the use of the global community as if, as its funding is not unlimited. So what happens now is that if there is interest, for example, in installing it in any location, I could do it voluntarily as long as there's enough resources, hardware, for example, if you have a server that's located somewhere that can accommodate the speed of it and the bandwidth, let's say, requirements, which is not much, it depends on the use, then please contact me at admin@mecodify.org, and I'll be able to guide you through the steps. There's also recently launched a library for Docker, which is a popular software that allows you to install a virtual machine on any device and then very simply have a copy of mirror of the software on your device. And so these are easy to set up on Macs. I'm not sure about Windows, but I've tried it recently and it worked like a charm. I can actually guide the process with Oxfam EU if they're interested. And maybe if I pass by one day, I can be there and have it installed.
That's great. I will personally be spreading the word around it with Oxfam International and Oxfam GB digital teams in order to push forward to have Oxfam's own installation for Mecodify so that everyone can use it. I will move to a question about digital security concerns. Do you think there is any, maybe this is related to privacy of people online? What do you think about it?
Well, I mean, there's no digital concern given that there's really nothing private about it. I mean, you're not putting private messages. Twitter's private messages are not there. I mean, the only way I could think of it being, let's say, somewhat of an ethical constraint is that when you have the data, what will you do with it? I mean, that's an ethical question that the person who is doing the analysis needs to ask. For example, if you discover that a particular individual has been attacked, or I mean, there are certain attacks or on that person, and we'd like to publish this information, then it's a more of a question about whether this is going to have any impact on the person and the harm on the person. But if it's digital security per se, there are no passwords. There are, I mean, passwords of Twitter accounts that are going to be used. There's no private information that's being collected. So I don't see it from that angle. There's just one particular thing that the software requires. It is what is called an API access code. And this is something that you can generate from the backend, the developer end of Twitter. It allows you to access the token and get that up and running. But if you're good at your server security, then it shouldn't be a problem.
Thank you, Dr. Walid. I think our time is up for this webinar. I would like to thank you again, Dr. Walid, for sharing the great features of Mecodify with our audience. And thank you, everybody, for your participation. I hope you found this discussion fruitful and interesting. As explained before, the session is being recorded. It will be posted online as a video on our YouTube channel, alongside with Arabic translation or interpretation. Also, as I mentioned before, there will be a feedback form which will be sent to your email and showing up. If it would be great if you can participate in it. It will help us to enhance our learning and organizing such webinars. Also, if I think you can find more information about Dr. Walid online, and I will be sending his link to his work to your mailbox. Thank you again for taking part in our webinar.
Thank you, and please share my email, admin@mecodify.org, to whoever is interested.
I will. Thank you, Dr. Walid.